Eric Calderon stood beneath the glowing dome of the High Tribunal Hall, hands calmly clasped behind him, surrounded by silence. Dozens of alien eyes watched from their elegant tiered platforms. The air had a cold sterility, laced with a hint of ozone and something floral. 12 of the most powerful civilizations in known space had gathered not to welcome Earth, but to weigh it. Eric's posture remained steady as he began. Esteemed delegates, I present the Unified Human Alliance's petition for full ascension to the Council. He'd rehearsed every word for months, perfected every inflection. None of it mattered. A flicker passed through the Draxel enclave. The shimmering gelatinous figure of High Speaker Mulkan pulsated. With a glow that meant disdain, petition noted. But what is it you believe you offer that warrants elevation? It asked telepathically, its words vibrating faintly in every mind. Eric gestured, and the chamber filled with floating visuals. Our stabilized fusion drives now power 30% of all outer colony stations. Human genomic therapies have neutralized 11 pan-species pathogens, and our modular farming systems currently sustain food production on 17 interstellar colonies. Mulkan's glow dimmed in amusement. Fusion, we had quantum singularity. Engines when your kind still bled each other over soil. Eric kept his voice measured, and yet, singularity engines are unserviceable without Draxel engineers. Human reactors, by contrast, are now maintained by 30 different species, from the tier occupied by the Charon dynasty, Viceroy. Shilvuk, a serpentine being armored in biometallic plates, uncoiled. Functionality isn't ingenuity. You make tools, we birth revolutions. Another hologram unfolded depicting human-developed interstellar relays, reducing galactic communication lag by 60%. Incremental progress builds civilizations, Viceroy. Not every step is a leap. The hive assembly of Zixer, a wall of synchronized chittering insects. Spoken unison. Humanity lacks convergence. Your chaos impedes unity. Your independence defies predictability. That is weakness. Eric didn't flinch. It's also invention. Every one of your species follows rigid orthodoxy. We adapt. We improvise. Our messiness is a feature, not a flaw. A deep, gravelly rumble rolled from the perennial's corner. Their envoy, Ild Senkatra, looked more like living stone than flesh. You've been among us for 50 solar cycles. We've governed this expanse for 50,000. Time builds wisdom. From the observation tier, Eric caught Dr. Rhea Monroe's eyes. She offered the barest nod. She had always known this would end with rejection. No matter how persuasive the facts, new minds see what old minds ignore, Eric countered. Our logistics team resolved the Hadro refugee bottleneck in 2 days. After your coordination efforts failed for 2 years, a pause. Then an anomaly, not a pattern, said the Nevrix emissary, waving a limb like seaweed in a current. What followed was hours of polite dismissal dressed as diplomacy. The council had already decided. Eric could have recited the chemical formula for peace itself, and they still would have called it crude. Mimicry. Eventually, Elder Shilvik called the vote. All in favor of full admission, silence. All opposed, 12 lights, 12 symbolic denials. Humanity's status remains unchanged, came the verdict. Eric bowed with perfect decorum, thanked the council, and turned to leave. As he reached the archway, he added without inflection, understood completely. Rhea joined him outside, her heels soft on the polished floor, word for word. Rejection by tradition, she said quietly. They still call us erratic, impulsive, unpredictable. Eric murmured, same song, half a century later. Good, Rhea said, her voice sharp. Let them think that. They entered the human consular wing, bypassed the ceremonial halls, and entered the secure relay room. Eric activated the human-designed encryption console, something the aliens had never cared to study. Directive Atlas. Clearance, Sentinel-4, he said. The council has rendered its judgment. Begin exodus. As he transmitted the signal, Rhea was already tapping into academic relay networks, filtering alerts to human scientists in seemingly mundane updates, requests for peer review, transfer schedules, research budget adjustments. How long before they notice? She asked. Years, maybe, Eric replied. They've spent 50 years convincing themselves. We're children. They won't suspect silence until it's deafening. Beyond the viewport, Council ships glided peacefully between station pylons. It looked like harmony, but underneath, something else had started. Not rebellion, not war, a vanishing. Eric watched the stars. They expect us to protest, to lash out, but they'll never suspect what's already begun. Not until they wake up alone. Confirmation pings echoed through the chamber. Every major human settlement and colony had received the order. Research institutes were going dark. Civilian trade hubs were withdrawing. Scientists were disappearing from collaborative projects. Quietly, systematically. Time to vanish. Rhea said, "No." Eric smiled grimly. Time to grow. Commander Elias Darnell watched the final shuttle rise from the plains of Titanus 4, its engines glowing softly in the twilight haze. From the orbital window aboard Watchtower Station Delta, the colony below looked quiet, normal even. But it was a ghost shell. 2 million humans had once called Titanus for home. Now, only camouflage remained. Automated greenhouses still cycled through their routines. Communications relays still blinked. But the soul of the colony had already departed. Status. On the Drazati envoy's arrival, he asked without turning. Lieutenant Sierra Miles responded from behind him en route, "Sir. They've filed a docking request for Trade Bay 3. Elias gave a curt nod. "Let them dock. Show them the facade. Make sure they see exactly what we want them to see." The Drazati had always been suspicious, especially Minister Trelvuk. Rumors had trickled through the diplomatic webs that humans were consolidating, downsizing, dismantling. Trelvuk wanted answers, or better, secrets. Elias descended to the docking level as the Drazati shuttle extended its landing struts. The vessel gleamed in unnecessary ornamentation typical for a race obsessed with appearances. When the ramp descended, Trelvuk strutted out first, metallic vines draping his elongated body. 3 aides followed, sensors already humming. "Commander." "Darnell," Trelvuk said, voice like broken glass ground together. "We're grateful for your transparency. Always happy to cooperate." Elias said with a practiced smile. "Shall we begin with the Mineral Refinement Center?" They toured the mock control room stripped of any meaningful tech months ago. What remained was just advanced enough to impress, but just crude enough to be unremarkable. Elias pointed at screens filled with falsified data, graphs that meant nothing, consoles that led nowhere. He narrated easily, fluidly. "We've reduced throughput to align with new trade efficiency metrics. Less waste, better calibration." One of Trelvuk's aides narrowed his eyes at a thermal readout. "Your fusion output's down 70% from last year. Energy conservation," Elias said smoothly. "A new initiative." Trelvuk slithered closer, his gold-plated eyes narrowing. "Odd. Humans have never been cautious. Perhaps we're learning." Elias kept his expression bland, his tone mild. "Progress looks different from the outside." The Drazati took notes, scanned walls, and pretended to understand the systems before them. They left with digital copies of irrelevant schematics and a few fabricated reactor specs. Satisfied or distracted. Hours later, Elias walked past the surface-level control deck and entered the actual operations hub deep within the station's core. There, real engineers worked quietly, coordinating the removal of vital systems. Massive crates sat ready loaded with prototype reactor components, AI cores, and archive drives. The entire station was being emptied, piece by piece, 5 light-years. Away on the frozen moon of Lyra 6, systems engineer Dr. Samira Holt was playing her own shell game. Lyra had been the testing ground for humanity's most advanced quantum relay technology. Communications here were faster, cleaner, more secure than anywhere else in known space. The Galactic Concordat thought they understood Lyra's systems. They'd even sent envoys to help maintain them, but all they saw was the surface. Samira stood beside an alien delegate from the Lucari swarm, bioluminescent, coral-shaped organisms who floated and blinked in soft rhythms. "Your primary entanglement chamber appears dormant," the Lucari ambassador chirped. "We've initiated diagnostic downtime," Samira replied. "We suspect phase drift." She lied with professional ease. The system wasn't dormant, it was being decommissioned. Safely, efficiently. Every entangled node, Every stabilizer crystal, every relay conduit was being boxed, sealed, and marked for transit. The aliens were so impressed by human cooperation. They never thought to check the deeper layers of the network. They never noticed the deliberate decay protocols Samira's team had programmed into the equipment being left behind. Timed failures that would appear organic. As the Lakari floated away, Samira turned to her assistant, Yelen Vu. Deactivate Sector B and initiate cooldown on the signal processors. Already done. Final shipment departs tonight. Samira exhaled slowly. Good. In for weeks. Their entire relay net starts falling apart. And not just communication, navigation, trade, surveillance, defense. Back on the agricultural world of Norwin Prime, Dr. Kieran Maddox was orchestrating an even more delicate maneuver. Norwin fed 13 colonies, its grain exports regulated down to the microton, and Kieran's task was to make 35,000 humans vanish under the noses of 6 alien observation groups. It had begun innocuously enough. Families left for seasonal employment. Scientists traveled for academic exchange. Farmhands rotated per standard cycle. Nothing out of the ordinary individually. Together, however, they were the dismantling of a civilization. In the grain logistics center, Kieran studied the output levels they were holding for now. Automated systems kept the harvests flowing, but without constant human maintenance, they'd fail. The aliens monitoring Norwin would see data consistent with operational continuity for another few months, maybe. Another transport out of the West Ridge today, said his logistics coordinator, Ava Rami. Keep the manifest light, Kieran said. No equipment tags, just personnel. Let the drones fill the visual gap. And so the humans kept leaving: doctors, botanists, engineers. Families quietly replaced by rotation workers from minor colonies. Who knew they were there to buy time? Just long enough to seal up the past and not raise alarm. Meanwhile, in orbit, around Delkar Station, Lieutenant Commander Nat Reyes tapped through strategic withdrawal orders from dozens of human military units. Officially, she was managing training rotation schedules across the interstellar peacekeeping corps. Unofficially, she was orchestrating the biggest coordinated withdrawal in history. Every human operative embedded with alien forces was being recalled. Under pretense, personnel transfers, cross-fleet war games, tactical reassessment exercises. Dozens of excuses, none of them true. Marshal Derek of the Varn Dominion is requesting clarity on the recall of Captain Yi Wan. Her aide reported. Tell him Captain Yi is undergoing surgical enhancement review, Nat said. Not even looking up. He'll return in 6 months. He wouldn't. None of them would. The void was calling. And by the time the galaxy looked around to wonder where the humans had gone, they'd be thousands of light years away. In every major colony and outpost, the withdrawal continued. Technology was stripped, systems sabotaged, protocols scrubbed, research burned. Humans weren't just leaving, they were erasing their fingerprints from galactic history. At Relay Node Theta, a message scrolled across a private human-only channel. Phase 2 commencing. Final departure. T-minus 72 hours. President Elena Marlowe sat in a soundproof chamber, 6 stories beneath the Capitol Dome of New Geneva on Earth. Her eyes on the central display as the final data packet arrived. Round her, the Human Coalition Council leaned forward in tense silence. The message was clear. Every outpost, every colony, every orbital ring had reported readiness. All fleets in position, said Fleet Marshal Idris Cho from a secure line aboard the flagship. Peregrine's Wake, awaiting green light. Elena took a breath, her fingers hovering over the command interface. 3 days, she whispered. More to herself than to anyone else. 3 days to erase 50 years. 3 days to reclaim everything they mocked. Trade Secretary Mikhail Oster corrected grimly, beside Elena. Dr. Rhea Monroe back from Arcturus Station watched the screen with calm focus. The void systems are prepped. Terraformers have reported breathable atmospheres across 5 prime worlds. Our new civilization is ready. And the scouts? Elena asked. Already building infrastructure, Rhea nodded. We won't just survive out there. We'll thrive. Then we begin, Elena said. Initiate final phase. Across the stars, Thousands of encrypted orders were transmitted buried in harmless logistics updates and weather calibration pings. Human. Space stations powered down. Colony ships powered up. Long-range beacons were rerouted or shut off entirely. Human life was vanishing from known space, and no one had sounded an alarm. Admiral Cho stared at the mission clock as it began to tick down. 72 hours and counting. The signal was sent, encoded through dozens of layered systems. Eagle departs. The galaxy didn't notice. On the mineral world of Jaros 3, industrial worker Isaac Brandt locked the main gates of a refinery that had once processed tritium. For half the known galaxy, the machines inside were off. The data cores had been wiped. No instructions remained. Isaac stepped into a waiting transport where technician Mira Voss nodded silently. "It's all gone," he said. "They'll never be able to restart it." "Good," Isaac muttered. "Let them figure out how to run things now." Elsewhere, on the medical megastation orbiting Valhoon Prime, Dr. Nilla Reyes stood at the door to her lab, hand on the biometric lock. Behind her, the lights dimmed as the last research cores disengaged. Her work on universal viral immunity had saved millions, but no one ever believed. The science had come from humanity, that now the alien researchers would find only skeleton files, disconnected systems, and dead ends. Her assistant, Tomas Weller, glanced at his wristpad. "The Safari delegation wants to schedule a summit. They think you're attending." "Let them think it," Nilla said. She placed her palm on the scanner one final time, sealing the lab permanently. "I'm not coming back." In the biodomes of Yulara Station, botanist Tasha Quill had completed her final inventory. She stood under the artificial sun, looking over hydroponic racks that had fed 11 colonies through human agricultural ingenuity. All the alien teams who'd once shared the facility were gone for the week, invited to a cultural symposium held on a neighboring station. That was no coincidence. She tapped her comlink. Package sealed, airlocks cycling. The last shipment of viable seed vaults departed silently into space, bound for coordinates the aliens would never access. At Defense Post Theta 9, near the outer galactic rim, Commander Lucien Rao led the quiet extraction of every human military advisor still embedded in foreign operations. They'd never held command. That had been the Council's pride. No humans in charge, just logistical supporters and field liaisons. But now, without those minor advisors, entire campaigns began to wobble. Fleet movements slowed, supply routes tangled, and the enemy, the Sekri war clans, began to push forward. Lucien stood before a tactical display flickering with incomplete data. "Any word from the Jever conflict zone?" "Last contact was 6 hours ago," said Lieutenant Marin. "Relay nodes are dropping offline. They've lost signal cohesion. And without us to patch their comms and manage logistics." Lucien's voice trailed off. "They're flying blind." By the time someone realized what was happening, it would already be too late. In orbit over Ganthios V, Minister Kelrev of the High Ketheri Order arrived for what was supposed to be a standard agricultural inspection. Instead, he found empty fields, silent farm clusters, and defunct drone equipment. Not destroyed, just offline. As if the workers had taken a break and never returned. "Where are the humans?" He barked at a maintenance bot still functioning. "Personnel have vacated the site." The bot responded flatly. "No new assignments scheduled." The minister's anger turned to alarm as he realized the server systems no longer responded to their input. The nutrient algorithms had been encrypted beyond decryption. The calibration data for fertilization was gone. Weather control drones had reverted to base routines, and soil stability monitors had entered dormant mode. "These systems, why are they locked?" he demanded. "No authorized credentials detected," the bot replied. Back on the diplomatic hub of Ralcor Station, High Counselor Eric Salish sat in his office surrounded by reports he didn't understand. Food production across 23 colonies was down nearly 60%. Navigation relays were failing across the core reach. Medical stations were running out of supplies and couldn't fabricate more. Without the precise molecular blueprints only humans had possessed, Eric's slammed a clawed hand against his desk. "They were background noise," he hissed. They were support staff. How can this be happening? His assistant hesitated. Counselor, they may have been more central to our systems than we realized. Eric's comlink buzzed. He accepted. The call without greeting. This is Admiral Cyrith, came the voice on the other end. The Sekri have invaded the Dren Reach. Our response fleets can't coordinate. The entanglement relays are malfunctioning. What do you mean malfunctioning? They were maintained by humans, every one of them. The backup quantum anchors won't sync. We're blind. Eric's. Across the galaxy, similar calls echoed through once proud command centers, trade halls, and medical labs. Where are the humans? Why aren't the systems responding? Who maintained this? How do we fix it? The answers didn't come because the humans weren't answering anymore, because they had already left, and the galaxy hadn't even noticed until now. Far beyond the spiral arms of the old galaxy, in a region once marked on stellar maps as uncharted hazard zone, the human fleet sailed calmly through the void. Ships of every shape and class, colonial arcs, science vessels, defense cruisers, trade rigs glided through the dark like ghosts freed from gravity's memory. Fleet Marshal Idris Cho stood aboard the command deck of Peregrine's Wake, observing the thriving structure of New Bastion through the viewport. Orbital platforms circled a planet with emerald oceans and golden continents. Transport ships landed with the precision of clockwork. Every world they'd claimed in this new frontier was flourishing. President Elena Marlowe reviewed incoming reports, alongside Dr. Rhea Monroe and Admiral Cho. Their civilization, barely 4 years old, had already surpassed everything they'd achieved under alien oversight. Our cities are fully powered, Cho reported. No trade deficits, no off-world dependencies. We're entirely self-sustaining. Defense network? Elena asked. Operational and secure, Cho said. Thanks to the new interlaced FTL mesh, courtesy of the engineers who never got credit in the old galaxy. On the agricultural world of Freya's Haven, former Norwin farmer Kieran Maddox oversaw a harvest unlike anything he'd ever imagined. Genetically tuned grains shimmered in hues of violet and gold. The nutrient yield was triple that of Earth-standard crops. The farming drones moved with exactitude, every one of them built and calibrated by human minds free of foreign regulation. We could feed 100 worlds. His neighbor Jenna remarked as they walked along the ridge. We could feed the whole damn galaxy, Kieran muttered, if we still cared. But they didn't. The species who once called them chaotic and childish now begged for food. Their soil sensors had degraded, their harvests were withering, and their knowledge of the systems they'd relied on had never been more than surface deep. In the new Medplex on Nova Helix Station, Dr. Nilla Reyes finished reviewing the results of the Phase 3 regeneration trials. The subjects' cellular deterioration had reversed by 82% within 5 years. Average human lifespans could extend by 2 centuries without side effects. She joined Dr. Rhea Monroe in the central lab. We've done more in 4 years than we ever managed in 50. That's because no one's telling us we're lucky for succeeding, Rhea said. We didn't hide this knowledge because we were afraid, Nilla added. We hid it because we knew they wouldn't understand it. And now they'll never benefit from it, Rhea finished quietly. Admiral Cho monitored the border perimeter from the Defense Operations Corps. Without alien-built jump gates, human ships used pulse thread drives, technology no other species had ever imagined. Their borders weren't just protected, they were invisible. The old galaxy didn't even know which direction to search. Any signs of intrusion? Cho asked. Nothing, sir, not a blip in weeks. They're still scrambling over collapsing trade lanes and food riots. Then let them struggle. Back in the communications suite aboard Peregrine's Wake, Officer Lena Hargrove scrolled through the latest burst from the old galaxy. Message after message from the Galactic Council poured in coded transmissions packed with desperation. To the leaders of the human coalition, we recognize our error. You are no longer probationary. You are our equals. We offer full partnership, joint governance, unrestricted territory rights. Please, return. Lena filed the messages silently, tagging each one as no response. This had become routine. She opened the last file in the batch. Relay Station 7. This is Observer Kellendross. report, galactic collapse nearing terminal stage. Secretary War fleets now control 6 core sectors. Remaining council representatives have fled to outer colonies. Central command has fractured. Recommend terminating all further monitoring. There's nothing left. The message was forwarded to President Marlowe. Later that evening, the Human Council gathered on New Bastion's summit platform, where stars blanketed the sky above them, and the hum of distant activity vibrated through the foundations. The collapse is complete, Elena said. The old galaxy has lost its food, medicine, communication, defense, everything we provided. And they still don't know how deep that dependency ran. They see it now. Trade Secretary Oster said bitterly. They just don't know how to fix it. Dr. Monroe held a data tablet. We could go back. We have the cures they need. The food reserves, the clean energy, the quantum repair protocols, all of it. But why would we? Asked Admiral Cho. When they had the chance, they voted against us. Not because we failed, but because they couldn't stand that we succeeded. The truth is, Elena said slowly, they never saw us as equals, not even when we carried their systems on our backs. And now they want help, Oster asked. They want to hand us the crown of a kingdom they let rot. They want to survive, Monroe corrected. It's not about equality, it's about desperation. The council sat in silence. Then Elena spoke, her voice clear. We offered our help for half a century. They used us, ridiculed us, dismissed us. When we left, we didn't leave in anger. We left because it was the only path forward. We're not going back, she concluded, not because of pride, but because our future was never meant to be built on their crumbling bones. She turned to Lena Hargrove. Send one final transmission. Encrypt it. Make sure it's the last thing they receive from us. Lena nodded. Later, the message arrived at a broken relay on the edge of the old galaxy, where the last council envoys huddled among flickering consoles and broken promises. It was short. Humanity has moved on. Do not follow. Back on New Bastion, beneath a sky untarnished by war or arrogance, humanity looked outward, not with fear or inferiority, but with boundless confidence. They had not disappeared. They had simply grown beyond.